My name is Iwuoha, and I am the founder and the CEO of Acecore Incorporations. And what we generally do at Acecore is we're a hardware company we're a renewable energy manufacturing company that designs, installs, and maintains renewable energy devices for African homes and businesses. And what makes us stand apart is that we are actually building systems indigenously here in Africa. So that's basically what we do at Acecore. Thank you.
All right. Do you want to put your hands together for him?
My name is Joshua, co-founder of Bellum. So Bellum is like having Google within your company, just the way you have Google to search for public information. You want to know the score of a match, you want to know what's happening in this place or that place. Bellum helps you find specific information within your company. So let's say you want to know the turnover you had last year, you want to know how much staff you brought in this year, you want to know how many people came to work on this day and at this time. So Bellum helps you answer all those kinds of questions within your company. Like I said, it's like having Google, but specifically for your company. And right now, our focus is the energy sector, power plants to be specific. Thank you.
All right. So Joshua, I'm going to ask you, and forgive me, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why do you think this is important? Why do you think this problem Bellum is solving is important?
Okay, I mean, the problem is important because knowledge is more important than action. While action determines how fast you go, knowledge determines the direction you are going in, right? And this is super important. So what happens is that in our workday, in our lives, we have junctions where we need certain pieces of information to push ahead, right? So you're about to take a certain action. In order to take that action, there are multiple options. In order to select the right option, you need to gather as much information as possible. Now, how do you get that information? How quickly can you get that information? That's what Bellum wants to do within the workplace. So people would get information faster, make decisions faster, and as a consequence, deliver value faster.
And make more money faster.
Faster, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Caleb, building power cell or power wall.
Power cell.
You were glad I used power cell, right? Okay. Building power cell for African homes. How tough has that been? And if you were to change something, what would it be?
Okay. First off, at its core, hardware, it's incredible. It's incredibly hard. So it is really difficult, first of all, because in the space where we're in, as Africans, like the people that make more money in the whole startup phase are all software companies. So it's really easy for them to just write codes and get employed outside. So even hardware engineers are shifting into software because of how easy it is in that area. So talent is really, really difficult to find. Like, you barely find people that are actually good at what they do in hardware sectors. And what would I change? Well, I would
okay, don't worry.
It is a lot.
He says it's a lot. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for clapping. He says it's a lot, right? It was difficult to choose the exact thing, right?
Yeah.
I get it. What exactly does power cell do, right? And why is it different from? But by the way, I mean, I wanted to take you up on when you said, software finds it easy, right? But I guess it's a conversation for another day, right? But I think what you're trying to say is relatively.
Yes, relatively.
Relatively, right?
Yes, easier.
Okay. So, but what exactly does your product do, and why is it? How is it different from what exists out there in the market?
All right. So, well, I started as a solar installer. So normally we audit a home and then buy solar equipment for the homes, inverters, batteries, and the rest of it. And I noticed that there was one particular question that customers will normally ask. They will normally ask, what can it carry? What can it power? The question is normal every time. And secondly, I also noticed that the system was too bulky. And even as it's too bulky, it does not deliver as much power as it claims it can. The batteries that are used in the market are called lead-acid batteries, the bulky batteries. Lead-acid batteries have a depth of charge of 50%. It means that in as much as it's this powerful, the moment you drain it over 50% of its capacity, it begins to weaken the battery. That's the first solution that we brought about in the power cell, the lithium-ion batteries, which have a 95% to 100% depth of charge, which means that if the lithium-ion battery is telling you that I am this powerful, it is actually that powerful. Compared to the deep cycle battery of that same capacity, the deep cycle battery would discharge at 50% less than the lithium-ion batteries. So they are more powerful and more energy dense than any other thing in the market. Now, secondly, they are smaller. So you can see how good looking a power cell is. It's small and compact. You can virtually put it anywhere in your home. You can basically put it in your parlor, and it adds beauty in your sitting room. When building the product, we focused on two things: aesthetics and functionality. The power cell comes with a software that enables users to track exactly how much energy they are consuming, which answers the question, what can it carry? It's so incredible that the moment you turn on a light bulb in your home, it tells you that you have added 10 watts of energy to your system. And it immediately recalibrates the system and tells you this is how long your system will last. So you can forget about the question, how long will it last? What can it carry? What can it do? Every single thing is being done from your mobile device, and you can see exactly how much energy is coming from your solar panels, how much energy you are consuming, how much energy is left in the system, and you can control the system from virtually anywhere in the world from your mobile device.
That truly sounds amazing, right?
Yes.
So, Joshua, back to you. What would you say are the biggest milestones, right, and the biggest progress that Bellum has achieved to date, and what does the future look like? What's the next phase?
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Uche, and well done. Great stuff.
Thank you very much.
So the first step to doing anything of this kind, which we'll call a startup, is finding the problem, right? And that is a very big milestone. These are important because these are the foundations upon which you begin to build the business. So you have to find the problem, and probably different breakout sessions talked about that. But after that, the next thing we've been able to do is confirm the problem. And why I'm going this low is because the closest competitors that we have are outside Africa right now. So you have to dig deep to discover the problem, dig deep to confirm that the problem exists. So that's the second thing. One, discover the problem. Two, we've been able to confirm the problem. During my time in working with the power sector, we've been able to confirm that problem. So where we are right now is we are confirming the solution. We have a draft for the solution, and we are confirming that. We are doing a test deployment at one of the power plants here in Port Harcourt to confirm that this problem that we've discovered and have confirmed has this as the solution. So that's where we are. Going forward, within the next couple of years, we look to be operating in all the power plants in Nigeria. And then once we are done with that, we break out into other industries.
Awesome. So in closing, as a closing thought, what would you say is your biggest challenge to date? And one that you would love to see solved one way or the other. So what would you say is your biggest challenge? And I'm going to ask you that question as well. So maybe you better start, articulating it. So, what would you say is your biggest challenge today?
To answer that question, I'll just back up a bit, then I'll answer the question, right? So, anytime you see something happening again and again and again and again, is because there are structures that support it, right? Two things are important. There will have to be structures that support it, and there have to be systems that engage those structures. Super, super important. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is, 5 years ago, you probably wanted to withdraw money and you had to go to the bank, line up, and then make your withdrawal. But today, every street corner you turn on, there's what? Right? There's POS. So if we are seeing POS businesses come up again and again and again, it's because there are structures that were set in place and there are systems that are allowing that thing to happen again and again. So NIBBS had an arrangement, or the government rather had an arrangement that set up NIBBS, which allowed different companies like Paystack and Flutterwave to come, and then all the banks connected to that. So with that structure, the system that allows POS to get set up, right, just becomes easier. So once you have structures in place, systems become easier. So to rephrase Mr. Uche's question, it will be, what system is Bellum trying to engage in that there is no structure for? Because when there is no structure, the systems become more difficult. So our challenges would be in executing certain systems. And if a structure is, if a certain structure is available, those systems will no longer be challenges. So I would mention some of the challenges that we've had, right, in bringing Bellum to where it is. The first challenge that we had, because of the uniqueness of the problem, was explaining the product. Like I said, we are the first doing what we are doing in Africa as far as we know. And how do we explain the product to somebody? Like, because most times there may not be context. So you have to spend time explaining the context. Then you now explain the problem, right? And I mean, not everybody has that time, because we learn about 1 minute business pitches, elevator pitches. And by the time the elevator is up, you just finish the context. Wait. Let me tell you the problem, right? So that's a challenge. When you're doing something that is, we would say, radically new, you have a challenge of explaining the problem. I think one way to solve that, one structure that would come and help us solve that is, am I supposed to talk about solutions, just challenges?
Yeah, the challenges that you're facing is...
Okay, so explain the problem.
So if you know what the solutions are to, we're
Great.
happy to hear.
Great. So one of the solutions that can help us with dealing with that challenge is education. I think Professor spoke about it when we were speaking on AI earlier in the morning. Education is super important, right? We have to understand what things mean, right? What things are, rather, and what they mean. You know, we use a lot of words these days. Disruption. How many of us know Clayton Christensen, the man that invented the idea of disruption, right? And the current use of the word disruption is totally different from what he intended, right? So we use the word, but we don't know what it means. So education means that I would know what something is, and I would know what it means, not just what it is in its word form, but what it means. So education is super, super important. You cannot have proper democracy without an educated populace. You cannot, because people will be voting based on what comes to their mind first, rather than how they are supposed to think about these things. You cannot have thriving businesses without an educated populace, because you go to meet a customer, you're trying to explain all the problems that they have, and they can't see their problems because they are not educated enough to see why this is a problem. So first challenge, like I said, is explaining the problem, and one of the solutions is education. And one of the manifestations of that solution is a conference like this, right? A place where people can, we can stay from morning till night, no elevator pitches here. We can talk about these things and have them. So that is one challenge, and that is 2 layers of the solution.
Awesome. Let's put our hands together for Joshua. All right.
Our challenges are I would like to rank them in 3 phases. One is talent.
Okay.
So just as I said earlier, finding hardware talent in this part of the world is really difficult. People are not really using their mentality anymore to create things. you barely find it. And to be honest, when we started Acecore, we were actually looking for how to develop our kissing. I think some persons will really understand what I'm trying to say. It was really difficult. I literally searched, called over 100 persons or companies that say they are into hardware manufacturing in Port Harcourt. I did not see. I was amazed when I saw Clinton. Like, it was mind-blowing. I would never forget my experience there. So, like, that alone, like, you can see like 1 in 1,000. So that's like how difficult it is to find hardware in this part of the world. And if we're not building what we are using, we are headed to basically destruction, because during COVID, there was a blockage, and then people were not being able to now import things anymore, and we are suffering. I personally, I starved because I did not have access to food, because I was not growing my own food, or my own food is not being grown where I was. So that's how difficult and how bad things can actually turn out to be. And that's why we said we want to manufacture in-house by ourselves from this continent for this continent. Number 2, funding, which is not far-fetched. It's a no-brainer. Everybody knows that. We need capital.
Are you sure?
And I wouldn't spend so much time on it. But then the last part, which is one of the biggest challenges we experience, is belief. Now, I spent so much time trying to explain or talk about Acecore, and at the end of my conversation, people say, it's not possible. There's no way. Like, you definitely bought this thing from China. This product was made by our very own hands, in our very own place, in this city, Port Harcourt. Crafted, designed by us. No external factor, from the software to the engineering. If you are into engineering, you would know how difficult it is to work with lithium-ion batteries. That's why Felicity do not use lithium-ion batteries, NMC chemistry. Top companies that use it is just Tesla. That's the only one I know of. There's no other company I know of. So it's incredible engineering. And I always believe that we can build things. We can use our mentality. I once heard of a story where a father took his son to the market, and they had 5 brains. The German brain, the United States brain, the UK brain, the Japan brain, and then the African brain. And each of these brains had prices tagged on them. But when he got to the African brain, there was a question mark. And then the son asked, "Father, why do all these brains have a particular price that you can buy them for, but this other brain do not have any price?" And the father said, "The African mind do not have a what. They don't know exactly how much they can push the boundaries yet. So they cannot quantify themselves if they don't know their capacity." This goes on to show that we have not tested the limit. We can put a rocket on the moon. We are capable. We have just not believed it yet. And the moment we begin to believe it, things will begin to actually change for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you. I thought no. Okay, he thought I was collecting mics. Yes, we're actually done. I mean, it's 15 seconds left, right? And thank you so much. No, I don't have time for question. Okay, but I can take just a single question.
My name is Precious Nawi. I am a web developer. I'm the founder of PressVilla. I have a question particularly for the Bellum guy. We're being asked, I think you were being asked the challenges you're facing, or the challenge you faced rather in course of building Bellum. And then you were talking about the problems that you've been solving with Bellum. I think I didn't get that very well, because in course of building Bellum, has it been that easy? Did you just conceptualize the idea and then the day-to-day running of the company, has it been that easy? Is it that you don't have any challenge at all, or you're just going around solving problems? I want to know specifically, what are your challenges? How have you been able to run this company, to build it to this level where it is now, where we can see you in Startup South? Tell us your real story. That's what I want to know.
Precious, Are you sure you will not corner him and hold a master class session?
The way he's talking, he's experiencing the challenges with me. So the real story. So I will tell you the real story.
In 20 seconds.
Yeah, I won't even go that long. So why I answered already was one of the answers to the question, and why this even touches the more is because of how many people we had to talk to before we got a test deployment. So right now, like I said, we are doing a test deployment in a power plant here in Port Harcourt, but we had spoken to people in Kano, we had spoken to people in Lagos, the biggest power plant in Lagos. We had spoken to even somebody whose name, if I call, everybody would know, right? Mm-hmm. And we are trying to explain that what we are doing is new. We are doing like what Excel did to the business market in the 1980s is what we are trying to do for businesses today. And if you are trying to do something new, it's either you are being foolish or you get a Nobel Prize. That's it. So to explain on that level is a challenge. Of course, there are other challenges. Getting money. There are challenges like getting time. And those I wanted to mention a challenge that I think is a real challenge because people's hands respond to their minds, and people's mind respond to the knowledge you give them. And if they don't understand the problem you are trying to solve, their hands won't move, their pockets won't move, their bodies won't move. So that's why I see that it may not feel like a challenge, but when you realize that your brain uses almost 70% of the energy, talking can be a challenge. So you want to be able to see opportunities where you can express yourself and people will understand. But for more specific, hard challenges, maybe like, I don't think I've starved yet, but all those kind of challenges, I can share them with you personally. And we had a session, I think, at Startup South in August, where we were very explicit about the challenges. So I just decided to share.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that because I was going to talk about it. I met Joshua for the first time back in August. Was it July? It was July, actually. Was it July, August?
I think it was August the first week.
Yeah, so I met Joshua for the very first time back in August because the Startup South Port Harcourt community held a meetup where he was asked to come and talk about his story, his failure. It was his failing story. And so he went very in-depth and talked about the things that Precious is asking him to say here. So that was like a 3 hours conversation, and we didn't feel like we should go. So Joshua, you understand where I'm going to?
I do.
So, and Precious, you understand too? If he starts that story...
He has to.
If he starts that story, I'm not sure we'll go from here. So it was awesome, and I think it's an opportunity to say that we do a lot more in the communities than just the conference, right? It provides us the opportunity to actually have these deep conversations that you're asking about. And so for those of you here, it's an opportunity to, like I tell everybody, the Startup South community is not another tech community. It's not a tech, in fact, it's not a tech community. If you want tech community, Open Talk is here, GDG is here. Oh, all the GDG people, please. Hello? Good. So GDG is here, Open Talk is here. I'm sure there are more tech communities around here, but we are basically about how do you process all of that into a business, right? How do we process it into a business? That's what we're interested in. And so it is the reason why we said that the Startup South community is a place where we want all professionals, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an accountant, whether you're an engineer, not the ones that, not talking down on my people. You guys are my people, right? All software engineers, we're all engineers, right? But when I say engineers, I mean the other hard engineers, right? Not soft engineers, hard engineers. So all engineers, salespeople, it's a place where all of us, we need to meet and have conversations about building businesses and building businesses at scale, right? And that brings me to the end of this conversation. Please.
Sorry, I thought I should say this, and I think it's very important. You cannot have a thriving place where businesses are spawning out every other month worth hundreds of thousands of dollars without an ecosystem. It is super, super important. And you check Silicon Valley, you check all the other hubs that are trying to come up in different parts of America, in China, Europe, even in Africa. If you do not have an ecosystem, it just doesn't work. But the funny thing is that the person that, or the people, or the group, or that body that holds the ecosystem, that brings the schools, that brings the businesses, that brings the governments, that brings the people, the investors together, they are usually very subtle, and people don't engage and take part in them, right? And that's what Startup South is. It's that hub that pulls the different parts of the ecosystem so that it can grow. So I think this is just an opportunity to really encourage us more to be part of this. We cannot have the kind of businesses we want to see coming out of the South and Southeast without something like this. So we've started and way to go. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. I thought you want to clap. All right. And to be honest, this whole event was put together through the support of the entire ecosystem. So it wasn't just Uche, right? And it's not just the team that you see. So a lot of the startups in the community. So some of you are here because some startups paid for tickets and said, give it out to people to attend, right? And that's part of the ecosystem. So I like to use this opportunity to say thank you to every one of us that are part of the ecosystem and that are doing the things that you're doing for us to grow the entire ecosystem. Thank you so much. And thanks for making the time to join us on this stage. Don't worry, like we keep saying, the challenges are solvable and we will get to them very quickly. Thank you, everyone.